Cool. Okay, so we've got our fresh files. Okay, so what do we put at the top of all the files? To clear, we've got to clear the workspace always and clear the command window.
Yes, yes.
You can open, if you want to keep your other one open or previous ones open for any reference, then open them. What's playing back soon?
Clear and CLC.
Nice. Nice. With the semicolon, right? Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And let's use, oh, have you got the same file? Let's use the same, so we're all working on the same file again. So we want to load in a matrix file, right? And we can call it matrix again. So how, yeah, remember like how we do that? How we load something in and assign it to matrix?
Load.
Yeah, so we use the load function. So we're going to load in the file name.
We're using the same one from yesterday, the map.
Yeah.
Or not yesterday, but.
And then we're going to assign that to a variable called matrix, right? And remember to put your semicolon, otherwise every time you run it, it will start putting it all in the command window.
Yeah.
Take forever. Cool. So if you want, you can run that, and it should load in matrix. Yep. Nice. Okay, right. Now we need to have another like brainstorm about what we're going to do here. So yeah. So basically, am I right in thinking that what you said to do was to add up the total number of times that, for example, the baby looks at toy 1, and how many times they look at toy 2, how many times they look at toy 3, etc., and then the same for the mum. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you just record like somehow like the first like time that they look at the object instead of counting all of them? You just somehow...
Yeah. Should we do that? Should we do the first? Should we define it as the first time they look? So what, when they're not looking at it? So like, let's find an example. So like here, for example, they were inattentive, and then they looked at the partner. So we'd count this one here as 1, right?
Yeah.
For look to partner. Yeah. Let's do that. So I guess what would be good to think about is first thing we might want to think about is where do we want to put all this at the end? Like what do we want to see at the end? Like we want to see a little table, but how do we want it? Should we open up another whiteboard? We can think about how we want to.
Yeah, probably a table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we did a table. So how many numbers do we want to have in the end?
Is it 10 again? You'd want the 1 to like 6 and then...
Yeah. It's gonna be exactly the same actually, isn't it, as the one we just did. Isn't it? Yeah, it's gonna be infant. So instead of it being seconds, we're gonna do it this time as huge text again, isn't it? Yeah, so we're gonna have infant and mum. And it's going to go down like this, the same. Should we do that? The same as last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's going to be our table. That's going to be our table. Okay, so this is going to... Oh, how do I... So we're going to have numbers in here. So... Okay. probably multiple ways to do this. There's a couple of ways to do this. I'm just trying to think which one's better to do. One of them might be more useful for the future. So, so basically, what we're going to do is we're going to look at where it jumps from 0 to 1, because every time it jumps from 0 to 1 is the start of a look. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a way we can identify. There's a way we can identify all of those times that it goes from 0 to 1. The question is, I guess, when it identifies that, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We'd want it to add up, surely.
Yeah, so I haven't done it that way before, but that is a way, because I've been looking at durations mainly before, but I think there'll be a way that we can add to this number that goes in here, that goes in the table.
Mhm.
There must be a way that we can just incrementally add on to that every time. So we can do that. The other way, which is slightly less obvious, but it's useful for other things you do in the future, is you could have another table that just every time it goes from 0 to 1, it puts the frame number in where it's done that. So you've got the frame number of where it starts. That's useful for later on when you're doing like durations of like follow and look stuff, because you can see start and end of these things. So you could have another table where it's just adding all the frame numbers where the look starts, and then you can just add up. You can just add up how many rows there are.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. That's another way to do it. Although I'm interested in your way, is that other way, Bexy, of just counting as well. It might be simpler. Should we start with that actually? Is that all right? I know, yeah, the other one's good as well, but it's probably less for this specific problem. It's probably less. It's probably not the right answer, because it's probably doing too much for what we need. But it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge. Okay. So what we've done previously is, instead of like writing out these whole like for loops from the start, we've kind of dived into like looking at a particular column or something, and then we've built the for loop around that to iterate across all the columns. So should we do that? Should we start with like toy 1 for the infant, for example, and then we can build around that? Does that work? Okay, cool. So should we create, yeah, so that table we just mentioned for the on the whiteboard, would you be able to, do you want to create that yourselves if you can, with a load of zeros? What should we call that? Oh, I think you're muted, Kristen.
Call it frequency table, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frequency table.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe a bit frac. I'm just going to put frac.
Yeah.
Frac table.
So it's actually going to be the same as what we said last time. Right? We're actually going to end up doing exactly the same with that array, like that column array as well.
Yeah.
But we'll start with we won't do that yet. We'll just start with one column. Okay. This is going to be interesting. Yeah, do you want to like throw out ideas of how we could do this? Any ideas? Anything that, so if you think about what it's got to do, like what's what's it got to do to? Wait, actually, do I need to tell you how to?
It needs to go through like every column one by one and work out when the change from 0 is to 1.
Yeah. So if we're only doing it, so let's say we're only doing it for column 1. What does it need to go through?
So all of the whole length of column 1, and then
yeah.
I guess. Oh no, I was gonna say. I just don't know what the right code would be to find out where it changes from a 0. Because I understand that if where it changes, then putting that one in, but to then. Yeah. Well, right. I get just putting that and adding 1 every time, but what is the code
function? I'll tell you the function to detect that jump from 0 to 1, and then I think we could probably then talk about how to build on top of that. So there's a function in Matlab called diff.
Okay.
Difference stands for difference, and it finds the difference between two references.
Yeah, we can only see the whiteboard at the moment, not your Matlab.
Sorry. Why is it only showing the whiteboard? What is that? Wait, where's my Zoom gone? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. There you go. So yeah, so we have this diff function. So for example, let me just see if this works. No, it doesn't work. Oh wait. Okay, I don't know how to use it properly. Okay, let's say though we want to look at the difference between. Can you see on my screen these here? So how would we reference this cell, for example, first? How would we reference this, including the name of the matrix? How would we reference this?
So matrix.
Yeah.
Bracket. Is it 1894?
Yeah.
Comma 1.
Yeah. And how would we reference the one below?
+1. Or 1895. Must be an easier way to do that than.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember myself. In 1 second. That's it. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Yeah. So you can put like a range in there. So if I did it to if I did the previous one, 1893 to 1894, it will show me 0, right? But yeah, 1814 to 1895 is 1.
But we need to substitute the number row out, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna substitute it. So that's what. Yeah. So if we're just looking at row 1, what are we gonna loop through? So basically, what we want to do is check if the difference is 1, and if it is, what do we want to do?
Add a 1 to another matrix to the frequency table.
Right, in the correct position. You want to add 1 to the number.
If statement, for loop.
For loop, yeah, nice. Yeah, so there's quite a few things here. There's quite a few things we need to loop through.
Yeah.
We need to loop through here. So let's actually put the if statement in. Okay, let's do that bit and then we'll do the loop. So let's actually just look at this example. So we know that the difference here is 1, right? So how would you say, like, if this difference is 1, then do something?
So if, like, can you do if
Let's say we want to get it to, like, if it is, then let's say we want to make frequency table, the first value, the frequency table just to be, I don't know, 666, just so we can recognize it, for example. How would we do that? It's like, if this happens, then do this.
Equals equal 1 or equal to 1.
Yeah, try it. It might give you the right error. Hopefully it'll give you an error when you try and do the equals 1. We're both trying out. What's happening? You getting errors or?
I don't think I'm entirely sure what to do.
Yeah, that's good. Well, what type of thing would we use if we want to do this? Like,
I got an error.
Instead of a for loop, what would we use to test if something equals something?
I would say like greater than, less than, right? But
what did you put at the start of this line?
I put if.
If. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and then put if.
So we can say if this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
So we're basically saying if this thing equals something, then do this. So yeah, just to put it out. So it's if this equals that, then do this. Else, do something else. And that's the structure of it. And you can also add in some, if you want, you can add, and there's some other conditions. You could do some else ifs. If there's another one, do this instead. Else. But you can have as many else ifs as you want. Actually, let me just show you. Yeah, look, let's check this out. So this is the hand coding. This is the hand coding script. So there's a thing in here where it looks at what keys are being pressed, and it's saying if the key is down equals 1, 1 just means true, I think. So if the key is being pressed down, and the key code is equal to fastback, which earlier on is defined. Fastback is number key code 20, which is in that sub-assigned number key codes thing. It's a M, the letter M. So if key is pressed and it's the letter M, then the frame number becomes frame minus 5. So it goes back 5 frames. Or else if the key down and the key is back, that equals the comma, then frame minus 1. Or if it's full stop, then we do frame plus 1. Or if it's / frame 1, blah, 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 blah. They haven't actually put an else at the end because there's nothing else that you want it to do, so they've just ended it at the end. But that's kind of a way of saying it checks if this has happened, and if not, then it checks if this has happened. If not, it checks if this has happened, and that's how that's been done. Just to kind of show a real life example of an if statement. Yeah. There's quite loads in here actually. There's quite a few of them in here. Cool. Okay. Sorry, just sidetracked, but okay. Cool. So yeah, so back to this one. What would we do then? So if the difference between these is 1, how would we say is 1?
Equals. Well, it's not right because I just put equals 1.
Yeah, I'll put it, and we'll see what we can see.
Not right. I know that because I got an error.
Yeah, we'll see what the error is. Then we're just gonna put the number 666 into frequency table, the first position, so it'll go up here, okay? And then we're going to end the if statement. This one, so you don't put semicolons at the end of the first line of the if statement, but you do for anything else, like inside, but not where you're putting the condition. So if I run this, we will get an error. Actually, it gives us the answer, and it gives us the answer in the error.
Let's use a double.
Exactly. So incorrect use of equals operator to assign a value to a variable, use 1 equals sign. So like here, for example, or here, we're assigning things to variables. But to compare values for equality, double equals sign. So we've got a double equals to check for it, but then we assign using a single equals. Now, because the difference between 1894 to 18951 is 1, because that is 1, it has done this. It's put 666 in there.
You don't need to put then.
No, sorry, I was just writing it as like a descriptive thing.
Yeah, no, I always put. I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but I put then. I don't know.
It worked.
No, what?
There are some languages that use then.
Maybe.
I don't think that'll work. No. Okay.
Didn't throw up an error.
Huh?
Didn't throw up an error.
No? No. Does that make sense, Bexy? Have you got it? Is it doing it?
Yeah, it does. It's good.
So yeah, so if we change this value, if we change this to the earlier one, to 1893 to 1894, then it should actually just get rid of, because it doesn't equals 1, it's not going to do this. It's just going to end. It's not going to do this. So right, now we're going to create, so what we need to do is, so instead of, obviously we're not going to go through and write, an if statement for every little pair, right? So what are we going to use? What do we need to use to basically go down here and keep doing this? It's going to keep comparing like this. What type of things do we need to use?
Like a for loop.
For loop. Yeah, we're going to loop through every row. We're going to loop through every row. From row number 1 all the way down
to end length.
Yeah. Minus 1, yeah. Okay. Any ideas of how we might want to do this? Or? Any questions or anything you're thinking or?
So for matrix, and then or assign it. So assign it to like a number, and then the row maybe, and then either I remember either we did length, or I think you also said there was a way you could do end.
And
Yeah, there's also an end. So yeah, so with the for loops, remember we're always putting like a variable. We're just creating a new variable, and then we're making a range that we're going to loop through. Just going to range start through to range end, and it's going to run for each of these numbers and do whatever's inside. And we're going to use that variable in here, and we're going to replace some stuff. The stuff that we need to, we can't just hard code. So these numbers, we need to update. So where are we starting? What's the first place where's the first place we're starting?
Row one.
What would you type in the code to reference this? We actually need to reference this cell here. How would you reference this?
One.
Sorry?
Like one, well, matrix.
Matrix, yeah.
Matrix 1 1.
1 1. And we're doing the range on the row, right?
Yeah.
Actually, similar to what we did here. This is a range as well. We made a range from 1894 to row 1894 to 1895. So we can make a range.
Isn't it just one comma column?
And then I think some of the backs, as you said before, we could say one to end on the rows.
Okay.
So we're going to loop. We're going to start at 1 1, and it's each loop through this for loop. It's going to go down. We're going to make it a number. We're going to give it a letter or something. Well, let's call it row. Let's call it row, the variable. It doesn't have to be a letter. It can be whatever you want to call it. Let's call it row. So for each okay, I should have done this differently. There's other ways to do this. Okay, so we've actually taken the exact value from inside the cell.
Because you need to.
So hold on, you're ready.
Right, actually, sorry. How do we get the number? What is the number 184? What is that? 185. What are these? What are these numbers? Are they numbers inside the cells?
Yeah.
Are they? Can we see? Are there 184s in here and 185s in the cells themselves?
Okay, no.
No, they're row numbers.
No, they're the row numbers. So actually, if we do want to keep it like this, then actually, because this won't work. This is actually giving us the value. So this is just going to go. This is going to go 0 0 0 0 0, which we don't want. We actually want to go 1 all the way up. So 17,549. So we want to go from 1 up to the final number. And it's not, I think end is for the value in the cell in the column on the row, but we use this one that's size. Size or length? I was getting confused.
Maybe before we've done length, I don't know. It might be size.
Let me just check. Just you can actually check it if you just type size matrix. It will just give value. Yeah, so it's that. Oh, it's actually given 2 numbers. So it gives. So if I put size matrix, it actually gives 2 values. It gives the rows and it gives the columns. But we only want the first one. So I think we could probably just do comma 1. Yeah, so you could actually reference the first or the second value in that. It's basically created an array with 2 values, the rows and the columns. So you can actually reference them just by putting comma 1, comma 2. So we need, so we need matrix 1 here. We need the first. We want the columns, the rows, the number of rows. Or length, maybe length is the one that doesn't require that. Comma 1. Length matrix. Yeah, length. You do length and then you don't need comma 1. Okay, so now what we're getting, we've got a range here that goes from 1 down to 17,549. And so every time it runs this loop, the value for row is going to go up. It's going to start at 1, and then the second time it's going to do 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. So what do we want to? What are we checking here? So we want to check. So if every time it does this, so let's say it starts at the beginning, starts at row 1. What do we want to check in terms of the difference being 1? Which two rows do we want to check?
The one before and the one next, if that makes like.
Yeah.
The one that's coming after it, or the one that's now on what was before it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You can choose either. We'll have to change some stuff either way. But yeah, let's do the one we're on. So if we start at row 1, we want to check the difference between row 1 and row 2. Yeah. So instead of saying, because we want to check between row 1 and row 2, instead of putting 1 and 2, because we don't want it to always check 1 and 2, we want to check whatever row we're on, and then the next one. What do we put instead of 1? What can we put instead of 1 and 2?
You just put a colon. I know, if we'd got one.
Row and then row plus 1. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, getting it.
So we start the range at 1, and we're assigning it to row. So we're going from row to row plus 1. We're looking at the difference between row. So is it confusing calling it row, or should we want to call it something else, or is that okay? Is that good to call it that? I don't know if it's confusing or not.
It works for me, but I don't know if Beck.
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So we've called. So when the first time we run this for loop, the value for row is 1. So we want to look is the difference between here and here. So we're looking at row, which is a value of 1, 1, 1 to 2, 1. So it's 1, 1 to 2, 1. We want to see if that equals 1. And if it does, then we want to do something. At the moment, we've got it adding 666, but we don't want it to add 666 to the table.
I wanted to add another 1 to whatever number is already in the table.
Exactly.
We also, in that difference line, number 10, after the row plus 1, does it need to be comma 1? Yeah.
I think so. Otherwise, we don't know which column we're looking at. Yeah. I don't know. It is running it. It is running it. Well, no, actually, you don't. And you don't because you don't at the moment. Actually, you won't need to at all. Yeah, you won't. You won't actually need to. Why did you ask that? Actually, do you know? Yeah. Why?
I was
You're
just
right.
thinking,
You're right.
I was just thinking that we're only looking down one column, so we don't need to then like define the column again because we're saying we're only looking at the length of that. So why we didn't? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Why are we defining that again?
Yeah, and that you're right. Like we technically don't need to because it's actually linked to that what we did last time with that timetable. So it's actually linked. It's actually linked to this. It's actually linked to this. The idea that you can just, instead of putting the row and the column, you can actually just put a single value, and it looks down like this. You know, it does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it does that. So you're right. Like we could just look at 1894 to 1895, and it's actually going to look at the. It's not actually called the row number. This isn't the row number. These are like indexes. So it will look at the 1894th value in matrix to the 1895th value in matrix.
However, though,
I'd rather put it in because we are going to have to change the column later.
Change the column. I was thinking when you need to change the column, you actually do need that number to be.
Yeah, we might be able to get away with it, but let's keep it in because that would be easy to change it. I think, yeah, we wanted to change it. We have here row to row plus 1.
Column equals 1.
Then we're going to do. So we are just doing. So our frequency table, let's create it. Our frequency table has got all these ready to go: infant, mum, and toy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the moment, we're just writing it for toy 1 for the infant. Yeah. So we do just want to put it in this first position. So for now, let's just leave this as a 1 because that means we're putting it into here. Okay. So what we need to do, we need to add 1 to whatever value is in there currently each time we loop through. Any ideas of what we could do to add 1 onto something that already exists? Sorry?
Some?
So some will add up all the values of something.
Oh, just like another add 1 then.
Yeah, you like x at 1 or something.
Yeah, so it's really similar to what we did last time, where we did the x equals x plus 1. We added 1, so x, the new value of x became whatever the old value of x was plus 1. So what we need to do here is we need to make the new value of frequency table 1 equal
frequency table plus 1.
Frequency table, the old value of frequency table 1 plus 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And because we've initiated the table with zeros, we don't need to actually, like here in the earlier one, we actually set x equal 1. Like we could have set, if we didn't have this, we would have to set x equals 0 to start with, but we've actually already got it as 0. So the first time it finds the difference is equaling 1, it's just going to add 1 onto 0. And I think, let me just check, I think that's it. No. Ah, yeah, okay, interesting. I know what this issue is. This comes back to something you said, Crystal, about do we do the current row, do we look at the difference between the current row, the previous row and the current row, or do we look at the difference between the current row and the next row? But because we're starting at 1, we could have started at row 2 and done it the other way, but because we're starting at row 1, we can't look. We have to look at the current row and the next row. We can't look at the previous row because there is no previous row. But what is this? What's saying here? What's this error message? Can you see my screen? Okay, is it too small? I never know how. I don't. My resolution is not great. I don't know how you can.
It's good for me.
That's
So I'm
fine.
just gonna actually.
Oh, I know. It's the problem is because of the last row, right? The last row that is trying to look at the last row, and I cannot look at the difference of the last row because there isn't anything after it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's trying to. So when it gets to row, when this number gets to the length value, and the length is 17,549. When it gets to that and row, but the value for the variable row becomes 17,549, it's trying to find a difference. It's checking if the difference between 17,549 and 17,550 is 1. But 17,550 as a row doesn't exist. And that's what this error is.
Mhm.
So what do we do?
Matlab, when it gets to the end, just don't do that.
Yeah, that's it. So don't do it. So what don't we want it to do?
So else, if you are on final line, don't do the calculation.
Good, but instead of having to add, so we don't want it to do. You just said it right. We don't want it to do the final line. So what is the final check we want it to do? Let me scroll down here. What's the final row? What's the final one that we want it to check?
The last row, the last length plus -1.
So this one, yeah, 17,548. We want it to there. We want it to check row to row plus 1. So it's there to there. That's all we want it to do. We want it to stop there.
Mhm.
So how can we do? We can type. We just want to type. There's literally two keys we want to press, and it will fix it.
Length of the matrix -1.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we just want to go up to 17,548 instead of 17,549. And now
Amazing.
you have your number of onset of looks in flow 1.
Cool.
Do you want to run through that again? Like, do you guys want to run through the code? Each of you can explain, write line by line and try and explain it. I think that's a good way. What do you think? Is that right? It's a way to do it?
Yeah, I was thinking about just trying to work out how to do it with sort of the next.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, we'll do that. Well, I'll show you how we'll do that next. Do you want to read out? Yeah, explain what this is doing. Yeah, do you want to try it? Is that all right to do that?
Bexy, do you want to do it?
So we get lots of questions wrong.
No, do it. Yeah, but it's a good way. It's a good way to. So right from the top, even like from line 1, like what's happening.
So that's programming to like make it like clear the command window every time. And then line 3 is you're loading in the file. Line 5, you're creating a variable frequency table, and you're filling it with zeros, with 5 rows and 2 columns.
Nice.
And then on line 7, you're creating another variable, which is the first column, and looking at the length, like how many is in that column, how much is in that column. But then you're missing off the last one. And then the next one, line 8, you're comparing the 2 numbers. So starting at 1, you compare 1 with 2, 2 with 3, button down.
Yeah, great.
And the frequency table bit is like where you're adding in the number. So frequency table is another Excel file that we've created, and we're trying to get them to get Matlab to add like 1 every time that we like find a 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. every time that this difference is one. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. Any questions in that of anything that's happening?
No.
That's good. Nice.
Be good to see how we get the other numbers.
Yeah. So how are we going to do that?
Do you just take the 1 off out, like on line 12? Do you just remove the 1?
Sorry, I've moved it around, haven't I? So it keeps changing line numbers. This one you mean, or which one do you mean? Which? Sorry. Oh,
7. So number 7 on yours. Do you just do like row equals, like open brackets, like colon length matrix da da da? You just don't put a number in the first one, like where it says 1.
So what was? So whenever we do a for loop, so this is always going to create just a range of numbers, right? That we're going to loop through, and we're going to use that, whatever value it is, we're going to use it for something.
Yeah.
So what you're saying to get rid of this one, or
yeah.
Firstly, we need to change. If we're doing it again, if we're like doing the next, like looking into the next column, the next code, you need to define the variable. The next code. So you, instead of having row, we need to change it. We need to make another variable. But then is this, I'm going to do this backwards, right? Because I'm going to again write out 6 or whatever code of this, just
right.
And that's a like
that's
it, right?
I think that actually might give us the answer. That might give us the answer if I demonstrate. If I show you that. So if I do this,
and then you just change every time.
And I length. And we want a column 2, and we're going to put it into the second one for toy 2. That will actually work.
But then for the row, yeah, I was going to say, the only thing I'd put as well is change that row, the first row, as a different variable name. Just put row 2 or something.
Yeah, so we can. Let me just check. Actually, I don't know why it keeps giving 12, unless it just. Okay, good. I was just like, why does it keep giving us 12? We can do this. So you could update. There's a reason you don't need to update this variable, because it does all of this first and then it moves on to this. It just updates row. So actually, row, we know that row here gets to 17,549. When that ends, when it gets here. Actually, so I put a breakpoint here, so it will get to this end of this first loop. Row will be 17,549.
Yeah.
Sorry, because we did -1. But then as soon as we start, we're basically reassigning row here. So as soon as, let me just do that, and it will now go back to 1.
Yeah.
And it'll go again, and it'll go all the way through again to 17,548, and then it will reset. So actually, you don't need to change it. It will reset. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How that resets. So we could do that. We could copy this 10 times. Or else, instead of copying it 10 times, what could we do? This is what we did last time.
Call array.
We will do that, yeah. I think we will have to do something like that. But in terms of like a concept of how can we go through we're changing the columns here to look through the different columns. What forgetting what we've written already, what would you normally use to do? Do you want to do something first in the first column, and then in the second column, and then in the third column, and then what type of thing would we use? What kind of
loop
code would we use? So I'm always, I guess, with those kind of questions, I'm always thinking like, is it going to be an if statement? Is it going to be a while loop? Is it going to be a for loop? Is it going to be a like we've got like, you know, the things that are in blue, like these are the kind of things that we use, types of statements and loops that we use.
A for loop, right?
We're going to, yeah, we use a for loop because we want to loop through a range of columns. We've already got a for loop here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we do a for loop with the for loop?
Just just do a for loop inside a for loop, can't you?
Do a for loop inside a for loop. Yeah. So we're gonna put a nest. I think it's called a nested for loop. Official term. Also, so I'm just going to put the for on the end, so we've got it, and I'm going to create some space now, just so we can see what we're doing. So if you think that with this for loop, we hard coded some values in here, didn't we? We put 1,894 and 1,895. And then the reason we did this for loop was so that we didn't need to hard, because we could have copied this if statement, we could have copied 17,548 times with the hard coded values, and it would have worked.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, we replaced those values with this variable called row, and we made it a for loop with a range that went, we made that range for what we want that value to equal. We've got something else in here that is still hard coded, because we now want to loop through the columns, and we've still got something in here. Well, we've got two things that are hard coded that we want to replace.
That first one.
There's so many ones.
Is that correct? The first one?
Which give me a line. Which line? Which
Oh,
line?
And 10.
Sorry?
I was going to say row 10, row equals 1.
This one.
Yeah.
So that, what would you change it to?
You just have it as a variable.
So what are we using this value for at the moment?
To look at the whole length.
We're using it here, right?
Yeah.
We're using that to look at whether we do need the one. The reason we need the one is because we're looking. So currently, what this says here is if the difference between matrix 1, let's say it's the first, let's say it's the very first time, and row equals 1. We're saying if the difference between matrix 1 to 2, so that's rows 1 to 2, comma, so comma 1, so we know comma 1 means column, is 1. So if the difference between 1, 1 and 2, 1 is 1, then we do something. So we do need these values. We always want to say if the difference between these two rows
is, yeah.
We want to do it now for different columns. So there's a value here that's hard coded currently for our column.
That the comma, so row plus 1, comma 1, that column 1, that is a hard coded that needs to change.
Yeah, so this is currently just looking in column 1. Exactly.
And the frequency table 1 as well.
And the frequency table 1 is also going in to the first
column.
Space. Into the first space. So yeah, we need to replace this with the variable, and that's going to be the other for loop. We're going to create another another range that we want it to go through some numbers, and each time it's basically going to run. How can I explain this? Let's say we got 10 columns. I'm going to call it k equals 1 to 10. Let's say let's say they're all in order. We've obviously got to do something because we're only using something. We've got to use that like column array thing because we've only got using some of the columns. Let's say we're using all the columns 1 to 10. And let's call it k. If I change this to k, and let's say I change these to k, that will actually work, actually. But anyway, what it's doing, just to explain this nested for loop, what it does is it will start this loop, this whole loop, and it will make k equals 1 to start with. And then while k is 1, it then does all of this loop. So while k is 1, it will check all of these for us, all the way down column 1, until it gets to the end of this for loop, where it's got to row 17,548, until it's got to here, right? And then when this for loop ends, it comes back to this one, and then k becomes 2. And now it's going to look at column 2, and it's going to do all the stuff inside and go through all the rows. When that ends, k becomes 3. That makes sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So actually that will work. I think it's actually the right number of things, but it's going to give some crazy numbers. Because we're checking here, it's checking all of the just checking the first 10 columns, which includes the frame number, the infant frame number column, and all sorts. And because frequency table has 10, exactly 10 spaces, it actually works like to put K in, because it's, yeah, it's actually worked, but it's wrong values. So K, we don't want K to be 1 to 10, we want K to be something else. I'm going to undo all this. I'm going to undo my ones as well. Yeah. So we can and we're going to call this column instead of, we've got row and column now, just to make it easier. I'm going to run to the loo quickly. Have a look at there's the one from last week.
Yeah.
And see if, have a think or talk, just chat. Do whatever.
Okay.
You can then call.
My brain feels really froggy today.
Yeah, I have days that's like that. That's what mine was like earlier. I actually feel a bit more awake. Maybe I should have done this earlier. It's quite good to keep my mind off things. I do have to leave in 20 minutes, but it's like some things of this are starting now to like click.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit for me as well, but it still seems a bit like a foreign language.
It is a foreign language, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Are you working this evening?
No, just meeting a friend at 6. So
That'd be nice.
yeah, it was her birthday, so I haven't been able to see her for like the last 3 weeks. So this is the one period that she's like, I have free like 6 to 6:30. I was like, okay, let's put that in.
Half an hour. Yeah.
Cole really wanted that. Poor Cole.
How many hours a week are you doing at the moment?
Meant to be 20, but more.
Who wants to hear the joke on this penguin?
Go on.
It's awful. What do penguins wear to the beach?
Flippers.
No, but they probably would. A bikini.
A bikini.
Spell it.
Sorry?
How is it spelled?
BEAK-INI.
Bikini.
I haven't had a penguin in years.
Oh, yeah. Wow. They're great.
Australia has a rip-off version of penguins. I think they're called tam-tams or something.
Tam-tams, yeah. No, Tim Tams, aren't they?
That's it, yeah. Like they're exactly the same.
Or is it a penguin?
No, it's exactly the same as penguins. And like when I was in Australia, it surprised me the amount of like British people would be like, wow, we love like Tim Tams so much. Like, but they're just penguins. They're like, no.
Yeah. Did you ever have fairy bread in Australia?
What's that, sorry?
Did you ever have fairy bread?
No.
Is it like brioche? Is it like brioche?
No, it's something they have at kids' birthday parties. And it's literally like, instead of like normally at kids' birthday parties, you get like cupcakes and, birthday cake, they make fairy bread. And it's literally slices of white bread just with some butter on, and they sprinkle on hundreds and thousands, and that's it.
Sounds unhealthy.
Awful.
I never went to any children's parties when I was there, so.
Dean went to a lot.
I did not. I haven't been to Australia. I just worked with Australians and they brought it in.
Well, so I have done that coloray thing again. So coloray equals, and then like done it. Like, I don't know if I need to do that. Like defined coloray as a variable sort of thing.
Yeah. So what have you written? So where I've got line 7, is that what you mean? You've written something?
Yeah, I haven't done 4. I just put like, I've done a line before that and I put col array
Okay.
and then put equals and then the square bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I did that as well. I copied it from the last one.
And then I was thinking then to do a for loop for col array sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Great. That would work. So just, yeah, it's really weird. Like conceptually, it's getting, I think, your head around this thing, isn't it? It's this idea that whatever's going in here now, whatever's going in here after this equals is a range of numbers that we're going to go through. And they don't have to be consecutive numbers. It doesn't need to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It can jump, right? But the only way we can make it jump is by doing something like this. And then we're going to use that number somewhere else when it's as a variable. Yeah. So what would you put? What did you put in? What did you put in?
Now I did col array, and then I feel like we need to do some sort of range now.
Yeah. Range from, basically we want the for loop. We want it to start where col equals 1, because we want down here we want it to be looking down column 1. Then we want it to look at 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And then after column 5, down here, we want it to jump to column 8. So yeah, so we want the col value to go from 5 to 8. So yeah, what's this range? So we're looking in col array from where to where for our values.
Oops. Okay, it's fine.
Hmm?
So it's 1, comma 1.
And
How many is 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, or end.
Yeah, I'll just show you why. So if I click 9, if I just put a breakpoint in there just so we can see col array, this is col array.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't really have, you've only got one row, so you don't really need to reference 1, 1, 2. You can actually just use that index thing, which is the single digit. So this the first values here, second, third, fourth, fifth. You do it that way. Just something to show you as well, that I only learned yesterday. I think if you do this, if you put semicolons in, it turns this in, it does it the other way around. Basically all that's doing is it's like doing a line break. That's what colon's doing, but it does it as, so yeah, however you want to see it, because actually it's kind of a bit nicer to look at it like that, I think. But it will still work because we're still referencing number 1, which is just the first value in col array up to the end. So we've got 10 values in here. Right? And we've got 10 values in our frequency table, so everything like matches up really nicely. So we're nearly done. Nearly done. What else do we need to change? So now we need to change something in this folder because we've got some hard-coded.
That certain ones. Col.
Yeah. So which ones do we need to change? So currently we've got somewhere where we've got one place currently where it's still referenced in column 1.
So after +1, where you're that one.
Yeah. And what do we got to change it to?
Col.
Col. Because the first time it's going to be 1, it's going to look at column 1, but then once it's finished with column 1, col is going to become the second value of col array. So yeah, and then it will look in the second column, etc., etc. And we also need to change this as well, right?
Yeah, so frequency table 1 to col 2.
Interesting one here, though.
Or would you not do that?
Sorry, what did you say?
So change it to col as well.
Yeah, sorry, we actually do need to add something else here. We need to add something else. So if we did add this, if we change this to col,
And it'd fuck up when it was going through it.
Yeah, what happens when it gets to here and its col becomes 12 at one point. At the end, col becomes 12. So what happens when it gets to col? What we don't want that to get to 12, right?
Yeah.
What values do we want in here? So we're going to be putting stuff in here.
Oh, we want like 1 to 10.
We want 1 to 10 because it's going to be putting it in 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Make it like an X.
We want 1 to 10, which we don't actually have anywhere at the moment where we can have a range of 1 to 10. So we did something last week, which would help with this.
Just like the X and then X plus 1.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's actually exactly what we did last week. We actually said that X starts as 1, so it starts at timetable 1, so it was going into the first part, and then we added 1 onto that, so it became 2, and that's what we need to do here as well. So I'm actually going to do this, especially to do the same thing. X equals 1. So we start at 1. Where do we need to where do we need to put this? Where do we need to put the? We can put that there. Put X.
So it needs to be under.
Somewhere we need to put X equals X plus 1 to add X up. When do we want to? Okay, so we start with X equals 1, right? So frequency table. We're adding up in here. When we're looking at row 1, so we're looking at the first toy. When we're looking at column 1, and we're every time we see the increment from 0 to 1, we want to add 1. We want to add 1 to this thing, right? So we want X is going to be frequency table. When do we want X to become 2? When do we want stuff to start going in here?
When the col array has gone to 2.
When the col array has gone to 2. Yeah. So when we start to look at this column 2. So it's so where would we put X equals X plus 1?
Do you put it after the first 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't, though. That almost does make sense. If X was 0, then you could put it here. Because you would have 1 at the beginning. Interesting. If X was 0, that would work.
Okay.
Oh, not. Oh wait, have I changed it? I think it's got to go. Hang on, why is that putting 0? Put the other one again. What's happened? You know, figure out why it's not working. The color rate is correct. Col's correct.
because
Let me just check what is col. You can do it down here actually. Col 2. Col 7. That's right. Done. It was working before.
I have something different to you.
Yeah. Oh, is yours working?
My frequency table has a number.
Just one number.
One number in it.
Have you still got ones in here, or?
No. For col equals col array 1 end, for row equals 1 equals 1 if diff row plus 1 col equals 3. I haven't put in the x equals plus. Yeah, I haven't got them. I haven't changed them either.
Yeah, it's going to be the end. I think it's the end. It doesn't work.
Mine doesn't like line 14 on yours.
Oh yeah. Have you
Yeah,
defined
so-
X earlier on?
Yeah, it
Mine's
says index exceeds number of array elements.
You got the -1.
You've got your col array, right? Your col array has got exactly 10 values in.
Yeah, I copied it from before.
Actually, let me just test it before I just do that. And go, well, we'll look at it next session. See as long as about 2 weeks. Nice, yeah, putting x equals 0 at the start. Normally do it that way, but let's okay. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
Wow. How many times the mum looks at the baby? It's crazy.
Okay.
Oh, so what I've done is I've changed this back now from those. It was the end. It didn't like the end thing when I was doing the colon.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll share my screen. I think it's the same as what you've put on yours. Apart from this bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So can you see? So it's giving you a bug. It's errored out when x is. Can you see what value x has got to when it errored out? Can you see? Do you know how to check that?
So you just.
You can click there, but it's actually already on your screen. It's already showing it. So in your workspace on the right.
Okay, but it says 10.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I got to 1.
So what's x? What's x?
11.
Yeah, and that's what it got to when it got an error, because we want x just to go up to 10, right?
Yes.
So you're adding 1 to x on every loop, right? And we want to do it. How many times do we want to like? So at the moment, your position of x equals x plus 1 is adding 1 after every that inner for loop. So that inner for loop has a range of 1 to 17,548.
Yeah.
And with each loop of that, you're adding 1 to x. So you're going up to 17,548, whereas actually you want to just go up to 10.
Okay.
So the position of the x equals x plus 1. You don't want it to update x to every row. You want it to update x every time we change column.
Okay.
Which is the outer for loop. I don't know if I haven't explained that very well.
Yeah. So if I move it here, that should
Yeah,
work.
you moved it, it'll work.
I think you might need another. I was
No.
going to say, I don't know if you need another end. 1, 2, 4.
Yeah, it's the end of the if, isn't it? Oh wait, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and again, sorry.
Never end.
Sorry,
Okay.
you had it inside the if statement, and now it's inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool.
That should work.
That's not showing in. Oh, there we go. Cool. How exciting. Thank
Yeah, that's cool.
you.
That's also like interesting data, isn't it? Like looking at that, like how many.
12.
Crazy, isn't it? That just shows you how long the kids are looking at toys compared to. That's insane, isn't it? It almost doesn't seem believable.
Yeah, there would be an interest to go back and just double check that. Like at that point, I'm like,
Yeah, it's worth doing that. Like you could definitely. I mean, it wouldn't take too long to run through here and see how many times the ones start. I guess.
But is that because when you said to the mum, or sometimes that they look back, keep looking back, keep looking back,
Yeah.
and that's when it's coded that it's so many more times. But actually, that's when we need to decide whether we're coding it as one look, because sometimes it's like within 2 or 3, or like
Yeah.
say it's within 10 codes, they'll look like that's not even within a second, right? It's
Right.
like, are we then we have to, I don't know whether we make a decision where we say like when they do that, actually we're still coding it as one look,
Yeah.
a certain amount of seconds.
I did this so this is when Emily talks about interpolating with partner looks. That's that where she doesn't like. I see if we can find an example. Did we go through this last week? I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's row 4 is? So that's mum looking to the baby. So basically,
There'll be a point probably where it changes.
right? This is a perfect example. So here the mum is looking at toy 1, but then she looks at the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Straight after that, she looks straight back to toy 1. So yeah. So to interpolating through partner looks would mean that this doesn't count as a new one. This still counts as the same one because I actually wrote the script the other day to do that.
Oh my god, amazing.
Which we can do another time. But it works. Like it's possible to, we can do that. And it's not. There's different ways. I did it. Emily told me how she does it. I did it a slightly different way. But we can do that eventually. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not sure. I have to bounce now, but I'm not sure when our next thing is for next week. If we want to put in another session. This time next week works again for me. I don't know if it does for you guys.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, yeah, I don't have anything on other than work. That's pretty flexible. Like, as long as I do the hours another day, it's fine.
Should we do 4 till 6 again?
Yeah.
The thing I was going to add, and you might want to just get, I don't know if you've got how many like matrices you've got already, but we could either you could put some codes in to create some new ones into the original like matrix creation thing, or I can create some more. But I was thinking it'd be nice to load in like 2 or 3 files, and then we do this for loop inside another for loop that loops through the files.
Yeah.
And then we can find we can put the average, then we can get like the total number, and like whatever this total number is, we can then divide it by the number of files we've used, and it'll give us the average number of looks across all of our participants. We could do that at the start next time, or you could try it for homework if you want to be bored.
Sounds good.
It requires, anyway.
Thank you very much. I really did got bounce, but thank you so much.
All right, I'll send out a Zoom link for next week.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Thanks, Bexy.
Thanks, Crystal. Bye-bye.